Grace, mercy, and peace be with you in the name of our risen Savior, Jesus the Christ. In December of 2007, a 53-year-old man named John Kralik was pretty close to rock bottom. His small law firm was failing. He couldn't pay his bills. He was in the middle of not his first, but his second divorce. He was estranged from his adult children. He was 40 pounds overweight, and his girlfriend had just broken up with him. It's not uncommon for people in that kind of situation to make desperate decisions. And that's what John Kralik did. On New Year's Day of 2008, he went for a walk in the hills above Pasadena, California, and he made a choice. It was a choice that changed not only his life, but the lives of countless other people. He chose gratitude, and that decision changed the trajectory of his life forever. On that January day, inspired by the beauty of the mountains around him and a nice note that he had received from an ex, John decided that he was going to write one thank you note every day for the next 365 days. In an interview with NPR, Mr. Kralik said, "I didn't have anything to lose, so I thought, let me try sending some thank you notes." Isn't that a strange impulse? I think most people in that situation feel like, I don't have anything to lose, so there's nothing I can do. Or some people even choose violence or self-harm, but this guy chooses to send thank you notes. Mr. Kralik said that this practice brought him from his lowest day to his fullest life. He said that writing daily thank you notes to family and friends and acquaintances and even total strangers eased his anger and lessened his frustration and even reduced his sadness. Since starting out on this gratitude journey, John Kralik has authored 2 books. The first one is called A Simple Act of Gratitude, How Learning to Say Thank You Changed My Life. And the second book is similar. It's called 365 Thank Yous, The Year A Simple Act of Daily Gratitude Changed My Life. Now, full disclosure, I haven't actually read either one of these books. I learned about them this week as I was preparing for this sermon, but I think I will read them. I actually have both of them on hold at the library because they sound interesting and also inspirational. Now, I'm not surprised by the premise of John Kralik's story. It's a well-documented fact that gratitude changes us in all sorts of wonderful ways. It's like it rewires our brains to see the good in the world and the good in our lives, rather than seeing just the bad. It helps us see abundance and possibilities rather than deficiencies and loss. A social researcher named Brene Brown says that gratitude and joy are inextricably linked, in that the practice of gratitude invites joy into our lives. That might be part of what was going on with the turnaround that John Kralik experienced, but the particular way that he chose to express gratitude also had something to do with it. The writing of the letters created connections with other people, and those connections proved to be transformative. The first thank you note that he chose to write was to his adult son. He wanted to say thank you for a Christmas present that he had received. But when he sat down to write the letter, he realized that he didn't know his son's address. So that led to a phone call, which then led to a lunch, which led to reconnection between a father and a son. Another thank you note went to a barista at Starbucks who remembered John's name and his regular order on a day that he was having a bad day. And he thought, I'm going to send this guy a thank you note. But then he realized that he didn't know the barista's name. So he kind of skulked around the coffee counter until he heard someone call him Steve. Now, John and Steve are on a first name basis. And that's a connection that never would have happened without those thank you cards. Our gospel text this morning is a story about gratitude, but it's also a story about connection and relationship, and the transformative power of all of those things rolled into one. As the story begins, Jesus is traveling in the borderland between Galilee and Samaria when he's approached by 10 men who are afflicted with leprosy. Leprosy was a horrible disease that ravaged the victim's health and appearance, but it also disrupted their relationships and their place within the community. The book of Leviticus explains the laws concerning leprosy. It reads, "The person who has a leprous disease shall wear torn clothes, and let the hair on their head be disheveled. and they shall cover their upper lip and cry out, unclean, unclean. And they shall remain unclean as long as they have the disease. They shall live alone. Their dwelling shall be outside of the camp. Can you imagine how isolating and miserable that kind of life would be? It's no wonder when Jesus passes by the men with leprosy, they cry out, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. When Jesus sees the men, he tells them to go show themselves to the priest. That's another one of the requirements in the book of Leviticus. Before a person with leprosy can be restored to the community, they have to be verified as clean so that they no longer have the disease and can spread it to others. It's kind of like having to show proof of a negative COVID test, but with a whole lot more at stake. While the men are on the way to see the priests, they are healed. And realizing the miracle that has taken place, one of the lepers turns around and goes back to Jesus. He praises God with a loud voice and throws himself at Jesus' feet, saying, "Thank you." And Jesus tells the grateful man, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." The word that's translated here as well can also be translated as whole or saved. Jesus healed 10 people, but one of the 10 was also made whole, was saved, because he chose gratitude. In the same way that John Kralik reached out to his son, in the same way that he learned a barista's name, in the same way that he made a personal connection with 300 and some other people through his thank you cards, this formerly leprous man made a connection with Jesus through an act of gratitude. He began a relationship built on a thank you, and that set him on a path to wholeness. It saved him. And that makes me wonder, can we really be saved by a thank you? John Kralik would say yes, and so it seems with the author of the Gospel of Luke. The good news is we can all be thankful, no matter how we are feeling at the present moment. In that NPR story, John Kralik said that before he began his thank you note project, he was in such a bad frame of mind that he didn't think that he had a single thing to be thankful for. His whole world was falling apart around him, and that was all that he could see. But when he forced himself to look at the beauty and the blessing, then he began to see it more and more, and he found that he actually had so many things to be thankful for. Gratitude can be learned. It's like a muscle that gets stronger every time we use it. And for that reason, it's important to be intentional about practicing our gratitude, just like it's important to work out any muscle that we have. There's lots of ways to do that. Some people like to keep a gratitude journal, right, where they make a list of all the things that they feel thankful for. Some people may start or end their day by saying out loud 3 things that they're thankful for. Some people may make music or art or write about gratitude. Our psalm this morning that Lillian read for us is one of those acts of gratitude. In it, each letter, in the original language in the Hebrew, each line begins with a different letter of the Hebrew alphabet, listing something that they're either thankful for or praising God for. That would be an interesting practice. Can you list things A to Z that you're thankful for in your life? Some people practice gratitude through acts of generosity, by knowing that they've been given a lot and so giving some of that away. Some people practice gratitude through service or through worship. Some people practice gratitude by writing thank you cards. And I'm sure there's lots of other ways to do it. What matters really is not how we do it, but that we do it. What matters is the turning back to God and turning back to one another and taking the time to say, I see you, I see what you've done for me, and I thank you. Can we be saved by a thank you? I don't know. But we can certainly be transformed by them. And maybe that's the same thing. Thanks be to God. Amen.